Alright, hello everyone. Is this working? I think it is. Let's hope the audio is fine this time. It's not all nasty. Alright, we'll be starting like a minute early. That's fine. Hello everyone. Today we're going to be talking about arrays and loops. So, we have a problem in coding. And I'll, rather than again reading off this slide, I don't like going on these slides. Let's hop on to playcode.io and then just start coding from here. I'm gonna get rid of this and delete that and then move this up. So we have a problem in coding. Let's say we wanted to make a shopping list. I can say item 0, or sorry, let's item 0 equal, let's say you need lettuce, you're gonna buy lettuce, and then let's item 1 equal, and then you're buying bread, and then let's item 2, and you can see how long this is taking to make a shopping list. And if you want to change every item in the shopping list, it would take forever. Let's say our third item is milk. So we have these 3 items, and even though we only have 3 items, it took forever to write out. So there's a problem. This is our problem, and arrays is how coders solve this problem. Let's look at the slide real quick. So an array is just a list of items, right? Yeah, a list of items, and one can okay, and the only like caveat to this list of items is that they all have to be the same type. So you can't you have to include all strings, or like some strings and an integer or something like that. And arrays have indexes, right? Which is just the place an item is in. And an index is like the label. And in coding, we like to start counting from 0. So let me show you what I mean. Let's create an array like right here. Let shopping list. I'm using the example from the slide. Let shopping list equal. We can just say lettuce. I don't care about the capitals. Lettuce, bread, and milk. So this is our shopping list, right? And you'll notice they're all the same data type, as in they're all strings. And in coding, right, how would we access one of these items? Let's say we wanted to log one of them to the console. Well, if I wanted to log lettuce, I wouldn't actually type in, I wouldn't like tell my computer I want the first item. I would tell my computer I want the 0th item. So the 0th item is lettuce, which means bread is the first item, right? We could try that. And that milk is the second item. So we started counting from 0. Now, if I wanted to find the length of this list, right, I would just log it to the console. Shopping list and then dot length. By typing dot length, we get the length of the list. So we can do this on any list we want. Let's say we had another list. Let games, or actually, what other common ID cards equal 662 187 2 3 blah blah blah. We have some ID numbers here. I'm just typing random numbers. And if you wanted the length of this list, you would log to the console. ID cards dot length. And I have 4 items in here. So what's next? Excuse me. Alright, so what's next? Well, we have some more information about arrays here, like how we access them. Again, we type in the square brackets, right? The square brackets, if you can't find them on your keyboard, by the way, they're next to the P key, right? IOP, and then come the square brackets. They're under the curly brackets, and we'll get to the curly brackets a little bit later. You already know how to use them in if and for. But they have other uses, and so you have these square brackets, and to access to create a list, you write square brackets and commas. You separate each item with a comma, and then in order to get one of the items, you use square brackets as well as the index, right? And yes, you can also log the entire array. Now, what if you wanted to add something to these lists? Well, there's two ways to do it. Let me get rid of this part. And one of the ways, well, first of all, we can change one of the items. Let's say we want to change the first item from bread to let's say just candy, right? So if we log the entire list to the console, you'll notice really, Luke. You'll notice that the bread changes to candy because we changed the first item, not the 0th item, but the first item. And also, if we wanted to add something, well, we could say shopping list of 3, right? Equals a new item. We can make it I can't even think of what I eat. Cheese, right? Let's say we make cheese, and then we log this to the console one more time, and you'll see, hey, now we have cheese in our list, right? We changed the third item, right? Not the 4th, but the third item, because we're including 0. We changed it to cheese. But let's say you don't know what the last item you just put in is, right? You don't know what place is the last item. So you could type in shopping list of shopping list.length, right? And then change this to the new item, right? New item. And then if I log this to the console, you'll notice that it's the next item, but this is kind of long. You have to type out like shopping list.length inside, right, of the index, just to give it a new item. But there's an easier way to do this, and the easier way is to type in shopping list.push and then give it a new item, newer item. And let's log this to the console one more time so that we can see what's inside of our list, and you'll see it just attaches the newer item at the end of the list. Now, what if you wanted to remove some items? Well, the dangerous way of doing it, I guess, is to type in shopping list of 0 equals null. This is a rather dangerous way of doing it, but we can see we can log this to the console and see what it looks like. And we have this null object here now. Now let's not do that. Actually, that's a really bad way of doing it. We can the better way to do it is to type in shopping list.pop, and you'll notice it gets rid of the last item. Now, what if you wanted to get rid of, say, the first item? Well, there's another function, right? Actually, let me see if this is in my slides. Okay, it's not in my slides. So what if you wanted to get rid of the first item? Then you would type in shopping list.splice, and then the index that you want it to remove. Let me just check this. Oh, I accidentally deleted everything. All right, 0 and then 1. Let's try that. Yeah. So this index is the one you want, the item you want to cut out, the first item that you want to cut out. I wanted to cut out lettuce, and then this next index is the last item. So splice actually cuts out a bunch of them, right? Starting from this index and then ending just before this index. What I mean by that is like, let's say this was 2. Then splice would get rid of 0 and 1, right? Just before 2, right? It doesn't remove 2, but it goes just before 2. So if I put 3, then it would cut out 0, 1, and 2. And if I put 1, it just cuts out 0. So that's splice. You can remove items from a list using splice. And don't set things equal to null. Alright, let's look at some loops. This is going to be a rather short lesson, actually. So what if you wanted to repeat something a bunch of times? Now that we know how to make a storage, right, a storage device, an array that can contain a bunch of items, what if you wanted to repeat something on a bunch of the items? Well, here's one way to do it, and it's a while loop. Let me go down here, move all the way down. Let me create a while loop. So we're gonna create a counting variable, right? I'm just gonna call mine I. So I equals 0, right? Let I equals 0. Oh, 0. And then while I is less than, say, 10, then let's log I to the console. Oh, and my computer froze. Oh no. We're frozen. Sweet. Just awesome. 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 It's going great. Let's just refresh. All right. Just great. All right. Well, my code crashed, so I'm gonna start over. All right. Okay, so my browser crashed. I had to kind of restart here. Let's look at the while loop. Let's start with a counting variable. So that let's start with a counting variable. I'm just gonna call mine I, right? It's something simple. Let I equals 0. And then we're gonna say while I is less than a certain value, I is less than, say, 10, right? We're gonna increase I, right? So I plus plus. We learned about incrementing I. Oh, and it froze again. Okay, all right. Just sweet, just great. Oh yeah, oh yeah. It's going awesome. All right, play code IO. Alright, my computer crashed several times, so I'm going to click pause here, and I think that'll stop my code from constantly updating itself and crashing itself. But we'll just see, I guess. So let's talk about the while loop. Let's start with creating a counting variable, something simple like I. Let I equal 0, and now we can increase or decrease I depending on how we want to loop through our items. So let I equal 0, and then I'm going to say while I is less than 10, just a small value. We're going to increase I. And you'll notice my console isn't updating because we haven't logged anything yet. Now I want to log I to the console, and we'll see what that looks like. Or I'm going to increase I after we log it. Alright, let's try it. Okay, alright, and you'll notice it logs from 0 to 9. Now let's go through this. I starts at 0, right? And while repeats something as long as whatever is inside the parentheses, as long as this is true. So as long as I is less than 10, we're going to do these things. We're going to repeat them over and over and over again. So first we log I. Since I started at 0, we get 0. Then I increases, right? I goes to 1. Then we keep going, it goes to 1, and this repeats. We log I again, and then we keep going until we hit 9. Now we log I, right, so that I is now 9, and then we increase I to 10. Now before we restart, we check it, right? We check, hey, is this condition still true? And I is no longer less than 10. It is 10, so we don't log it at 10. Now you might want to say, hey, well, don't you want to do I is less than or equal to 10? So that you can get from 0 to 10? Well, actually no, and I'll show you why. Hold on. Alright, so let's say we have our shopping list again. Let's make our shopping list again, shopping list, and set that equal to, Oh, I forgot let. I'm sorry. I've been working on Python recently. All right. Let's we're gonna get lettuce, right, and then bread, lettuce, bread, and milk. All right. So lettuce, bread, and milk. Now, what if I wanted to go through every single one of these items? Well, instead of less than 10, I'm gonna type in shopping list dot length. So now it goes from 0 to 1 to 2, right? Because there are 3 items. The length is 3, which means I goes from 0 to 1 minus the length. Now instead of logging I want to log shopping list of I with the index I. And you'll notice this logs all of my items. Now this isn't very useful if we're just logging them to the console, because I could just log the entire list, right? I could just console.log shopping list. But let's say you wanted to add something to all of these items, or you wanted to add them all together or multiply something. Now you have a way of looping through the list and doing something with it. So yeah, that's the while loop. And so in my slides, I go over another example, which is basically the exact same thing with extra comments. So you can look at the comments if you need more clarification or for more review, something like that. Excuse me. And now we're going to go over the for loop. So it's for counting, right? For loops make counting through an array shorter and cleaner. It has the same elements as the while loop, but packs it into one line. So let's look back at our code. Our code looks like this. We have around, I'm going to delete this line. We have around, if I delete this space, around 4 lines, right, to loop through the entire array. I bet you we can do it shorter, right? And so we could do it shorter using the for loop. For, when you type in for, you first type in a counting variable. I'm going to use j instead. I and j are very common counting variables. So that j equals 0. J is less than shopping list dot length, and then j plus plus. All right, and you'll notice, right, if this has the exact same structure as this while loop, right? We started out by creating a counting variable, then we set a condition, right? We checked as long as it's less than the length, and we increased it, right? We incremented it. Now you can change any of these. You can have j start at 10. You can have it start at the shopping list dot length, and then go down as long as it's greater than 0. And then you could decrease j. There are a bunch of ways you can mess around with this, but the result is about the same. You just log shopping list of j instead. Now there's another way to do this. I think here's how you type it. I don't remember exactly. For let's say item in shopping list, and then you log item. Nope. Okay. So it's not in. It's actually a for item of shopping list. So when you type for item of shopping list, instead of creating this counting variable, it actually creates. It actually just uses the item, right? So it starts with the lettuce, and then it goes to bread, and then it goes to milk. Instead of starting at 0, then going to 1, then going to 2. But let's say you wanted it to go through from 0 to 1 to 2. Then you could type in for item in, and you could say for just I or j, right? For j or item, right? Item in shopping list. Oh, now hold on. Yes. For item of. Now you'll notice here you're not actually creating the variable. You're not saying let item, and that's because JavaScript is so smart. It knows that you're creating the variable called item anyways. But you should it's up to you whether or not you want to include the let. So here's an even more special for loop that you can use, and that's pretty cool. And then here's an example. So this is a rather weird example, and all I'm doing is essentially creating random numbers, right? I create the random. I first start out with an empty list, right? And you can always start out with an empty array. Then you know what? Why don't I just type this out? Yeah, yeah. Let's just type this out. So I'm gonna go over the example right now. So you can create an empty list, right? Empty, or like numbers list, right? And then start out as empty, and then you could push a bunch of items into the list. So for I'm gonna put 100 items inside the list. I is less than I equals 0. I is less than 100, and this will run 100 times, and then I plus plus, and I'm going to go ahead and generate some random numbers. So I'm gonna say let random number equal math.random times 100. Now, okay, what does math.random actually do? It doesn't create a random number, right? It actually creates a random number between 0 and 1. So you might get like 0.15. And in fact, why don't we just log some of these to the console? Or actually a bunch of these. It's going to log a bunch. Ready? Okay, yeah, you see it starts at 0.57, and I multiplied by 100 to get it to 57 point something something something. So now that we have that number, let's go ahead and floor it. Let random integer, I'm going to say set this equal to the random number, or sorry, math.floor of random number. Now, why did I do that? And if I didn't, I'm going to get rid of this log because it's lagging out my computer a bunch, but when I say random integer, I mean I want whole numbers, right? Or 0, right? I don't want like 57.07291 whatever. That'll be too complicated. So I want whole numbers, right? I want integers. And so if I say math.floor, flooring a number just gets rid of the decimal. So it doesn't round. If it's 5.9, it'll actually make it 5 instead of 6. And there is a rounding function, but or you can make your own, but I'd rather not. So I just decided to use floor instead. So I created a random number, right? Between 0 and 1. I multiplied it by 100, and then I floored it. And you can actually combine both of these lines by just taking this, tossing it inside of here, and then deleting this line. And so I'm actually going to do that. And then I'm going to push this inside of the numbers list. So numbers list that I created earlier, I'm going to push this inside random integer, the random integer I created. And in fact, you can go even further to shorten this further. You just take this and plop it into here. And one neat thing about this is obviously you have less lines of code now, but it's harder to read. So it's up to you. I'm going to leave it like this because I have the slide with the explanations and everything, and I just explained it now. Hopefully you understand this, but to another coder, this might not make sense. So you want to break it down step by step. Either add a bunch of comments, or you can create a bunch of variables, and then one by one move down. But this is the shortest way to do it, so I'm just going to leave it as that. Now, we want to go through this list for let's j equals 0, j is less than numbers list.length. You could also use 100 here, right? But just in case I change this number, this 100 over here, I want to not have to change both of these, right? So you could use 100 here because you already have 100 items in the first list. But again, I'm going to leave it as numbers list.length. And then I'm going to increase j, and that means we're going through every item in j. And if let's say we want even numbers that are greater than 50, right? Let's say, okay, so if numbers list of j, right, we're checking the number. If it's greater than 50, and this is the and sign, and also if numbers list of j modulus 2, as in if it's an even number, is greater, it equals 0, right? If it's the remainder of it being divided by 2, if it's 0, that means it's an even number, then we're going to let it be. But if not, right, and I could just include the not sign after wrapping all of this, right? If it's not one of these, we want to splice it. We want to get rid of it, okay? So how do we get rid of it? Well, you can, again, remember the splice function, right? Numbers list of j dot splice, splice of between j and j plus 1. Now, something's wrong with this code, and I'm going to tell you right off the bat, and why it won't work. The reason this won't work is because as you're as you're looping through the array, if you take out an element, the entire rest of the array shifts. So let me give you an example. Let's say you're looking at 0, 1, and 3. This simple, okay, all right, 1, 2, 3. This simple array. So let's say you splice 0, right? You splice the 0th element, right? 0, 1. You're looping through the array and you splice 0, 1. Okay, so I is at 0 right now, and then you spliced 0, 1. So now your list is or your array is 2, 3. Now I goes to 1 now, right? It started at 0, now it's at 1. But the thing is, if you go to 1, you're looking at 3. And if you're looking at 3, then you just skipped over 2. Again, if you're looking at it if you're looking at it from left to right, you look at each number, you first check 0, then 1, then 2. As you're doing it, if you take away 1, then you'll skip over 2. So we're gonna have to find another solution to this. And one of the solutions is to create a new array, and I'll show you what I mean. So instead of removing elements if the number doesn't follow these conditions, let's add them to a new list if they do follow the conditions. So I'm going to create a new list. Let even, yeah, I called it even greater 50. So I'm going to set this to that, and then instead of, again, splicing from the old one, I'm going to push, I'm going to go to even greater 50 dot push. I'm going to add to this new array, this empty one, the number if it follows. So push numbers list of j. So now let's look at this code, and I'm actually going to push this to the side so hopefully you can read it, all this code. All right, so yes, I create a list of 100 random numbers between 0 and 100. Then I loop through them, right? And then I take the ones that are greater than 50 and even, and then I store them in a new array. This new, this new array. So we still have this old array of the 100 numbers, and we have a new array containing the items that we want. So that's an example of looping. And yeah, I will do another example of looping after this. Excuse me. Let's review first. So let's review. What is an array? Well, it's a way that we can store a bunch of items in an organized and contained fashion. And as long as all the items are in the same data type, then we're good. Arrays have indexes, which are like the label for them, and it stands for where the place of the item is, right? So the index actually starts at 0th place. And we can use indexes to pick which value or which item we want in the array, and then we can either look at it, log it, or change it. We can also add new items using push, and also we remove items using splice. And using indexes out of the bounds of the array can get weird. And I will show you what you mean. Show what I mean after this. We can create null values. And also looping through the array can be done using a while loop and a for loop, right? The for loop is more optimized for looking through all the elements of an array and has a bunch of different versions, right? Like the for item in array. So let's get some practice in before we end this lesson. And I'm actually going to teach you guys something new during the practice. So some new stuff that that came up earlier or might have come up. Okay, so let's create this array, right? That's small, or okay, let numbers equal 1, 3, 2, 6, 2, and then so we have 4 items here, which means the last place is third, right? 0, 1, 2, 3. What if I tried to log the fourth item, numbers of 4? Well, you'd get undefined, right? We didn't give it a fourth item. We give it 0, 1, 2, and 3, right? Up to a third item. Now, what if instead we tried to change the fourth item? We can change numbers of 1, right, pretty easily to like 5, 4. But what if we changed numbers of 4 to 4? Oh, sorry, 5 to 4. Even if you set 4 to 4, it would work. But what if you set 5 to 4? Let's log the entire array to show you what I mean. If you tried to, oh man, that's really ugly. Let's move this back. If you try to change one that's like extending out, you'd stick an undefined value in between. So we have 0, 1, 2, and 3, which we created at the beginning. Then we have the fourth place that we didn't ever define, and then a fifth place for number 5 that we gave a 5. So yeah, you want to be careful with that. All right, now the final practice, we're gonna work on making, I guess, like a calculator. Yeah, sure. Yeah, let's do a calculator. Yeah. Do I want to do? Hold on. Do I want to do this? Before I. Okay, let's make a calculator. Okay. Oh, my family's home. Okay. Calculator. Now, what's special about our calculator is that you can get some input. So I want to pause this real quick because it's going to get annoying really fast. But actually, before I pause it, I'm going to say let's input equal prompt. I wonder if prompt is working. Is it input? Here, let's try prompt. Prompt hello. Let's see if this is working. Alright, yeah, okay. Alright, it's working. Alright, I'm gonna pause this again because it's getting annoying. So here's how JavaScript people can ask input from users. And in the past, if you've ever coded in something like Python or I guess Java, a lot of the times you'll have a way to talk to people using the console, right? Or not talk to people, that sounds weird. Once you log something to the console, you'll have a way of gathering input from the console too. You can type something, right? In Python, you just type in input. In JavaScript, because you're essentially using a website, they create this whole prompt thing instead that lets you store variables. So I'm going to cancel, and then to show you that it's working, I'm going to log the input. So let's run this. Hello, hi, and then you'll see that hi is logged to the console. Pause this again. So you can see how we could, I guess, create a calculator, right? You can give two numbers, and then you could say, hey, do you want to add, multiply, divide, that kind of thing, and then it'll calculate it for you, essentially, right? So now to test whether or not it works with math, let's say, let's see if you can even add numbers to it in the first place. So let's say hello, but you type in a number like 5. Will it give you 7 or will it give you 52? This is our question here. And you'll notice it will give you 52. So how do you get input to actually be an integer, right? A number instead of a string. Well, here's one way to do it, right? And it's called Parse Int, right? So we're going to type in Parse Int, right? Oh, wait, cancel. I need to pause this. Pause. Oh, pause. Okay, it's paused. Oh no, I accidentally unpaused it. Okay, pause. Right, parse int. Right, if you say parse int and then input, and you press play, let's try 5 again, and it'll give you 7. So parse int converts a string into an integer, right? So now let's try this, right? How would we make a calculator? Well, you would first, say let's number 1 equal, and then you prompt them, right? You say give, I forgot to pause. Okay, give us first number, Alright, so we ask for one number, then we say number 2 equal prompt give us another number. Alright, give us a number and then give us another number, right? And then let's operation equal prompt give add, subtract, multiply, or divide. So now they have the option of, adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing. And then let, result equal, okay, before we do that, so if operation equals add, right, then we're going to add the two numbers, right? So I'm going to say let result and then not give it a value yet. So result is going to become, the numbers added if we give them add, and then, subtracted if we give them subtract. Pretty simple stuff. Okay, so I hope this makes sense. Alright, I'm also going to comment my code and explain after I'm done typing it. So subtract. If I'm typing quickly, that's okay. Take your time. You can pause the video, obviously. Multiply and divide. Now you'll notice before I actually do that, I have to parse int it. So I'm gonna parse int after the prompt. So the prompt is gonna give. So let me just type this out. Okay. So what does this code do? All right. So we ask for the first variable, right? We're gonna ask our first number, and then convert it to an integer, right? We say prompt, right? And then the string you given here is the little message it gives you, right? So we prompt them, right, which will give us a string, right? It could be 4 or 5 or 10, whatever, a number, but it'll come in this string format, a string data type. So we say parse int to convert that string into an integer, right? Now that we can deal with it as an actual number, right? Now we can deal with it as an actual number. So then we store it inside of the number 1, right? Then we ask for another and convert to an integer, right? Then now we're going to ask for an operation, which is going to stay as a string. We don't have to get this as an integer, right? So if they type in add, subtract, multiply, or divide, it's gonna we can find the result with that information, right? So let's say they say add, right? We check if they say add. If they say it said add, then we can have the result equal the sum of the two. Now, we have an empty result, right? If we leave it as empty, right, then we could change it later on. Another way you could do this is to write var, right, and then this is fine, right? So we create an empty variable and then change it to whatever we get once we actually apply an operation to it. Oh, why did I just type divide here? So we type divide there, right? And now, calculate the result. And then we're going to console.log. We're going to log that result. The result is, and then, the result plus result. So this is a 24-line calculator program, and it has some errors, and I'll show you what I mean later. All right, so this, to do number, let's do 2, and then like 4, and then we're gonna add them, and the result is 6. Nice, it works. But obviously, let's try doing this. Except we're gonna give it chicken, right? And then I don't know, monkey, right? And then we're gonna, instead of doing all that, we're gonna type in 9, and the result is undefined, right? You can tell because how is it supposed to convert chicken into an integer, or monkey into an integer, and how is it gonna check? What is it gonna do if none of the operations are given? So this is when we have to So to add in some fail safes, right? So the first fail safe is to check while, right? We're gonna check. We're gonna. Okay, there's a couple ways to do this. Oh no, let me pause. Oh no, 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 pause. Okay, okay. There are a couple of ways to do this, and I guess we'll start with the way I want to do it. So one thing before I actually try and like check everything is I want to see what it looks like, right? What number one looks like if we give it something that's not a number. So chicken. Alright, I spelled it wrong. That's fine. We'll just type in some random stuff, and you'll notice it gives us nothing. So I want to check if this is an integer, right? Before I move on. So I'm going to write. Why do I keep forgetting to pause? All right, pause. Okay. Whew. Oh boy. Okay. So I'm gonna say, right? Okay, but no, we can't do this unless we have a function that checks if something is an integer, right? So a good way to do that is Google, like, I guess a function that tests if something is an integer, and one of them is number dot is integer, right? So and if you type like 5 in here, it'll return true. So we have to check if a number is going to equal an integer. So let's start out by saying let number 1, right? And then we're not going to give it anything, okay? Now, how do we keep asking them until they finally give us an integer? Well, you can say while number 1, as long as it keep asking until it actually becomes an integer. So what I mean by this is we're gonna keep checking, right? Is integer number 1? Wait, hold on. While not, what am I doing? While not number is integer. So if it is an integer, right, go ahead and move on. Right now it's not an integer because we didn't give it anything, right? Right? So if it is an integer, right, then this will return true, which means that with the bang or the not sign or the exclamation mark, it'll give us false, and then we can finally get out of the loop. So this while loop happens if number 1 isn't an integer, right? So it keeps asking them until you finally get an integer. So how do we ask them? Well, we could say number 1 equals parse int prompt give us a valid integer. And I guess maybe actually, okay, we're not gonna use this. We're gonna use something else. All right, I am doing awesome. So instead of this, we're gonna use type of. Type of checks if something is a certain type. So while number 1 type of number. Wait. Okay, sorry, I typed that completely wrong. While type of number 1 equals null. So we're gonna repeat something. So this checks if something is no, not null. I meant number. All right, we're gonna check if something is a number, right? Oh boy. So what does type of do? Well, type of will give us the type of a certain variable. So if we give it the variable number 1, we say type of variable, and then we say equals number, then it'll check if the type of it is a number, right? If the type of this variable is a number, right? It kind of makes sense. So if we include the exclamation mark here, then it'll keep checking until number 1 finally becomes a number, right? So let's just go ahead and test this code. I think I need to stop rambling. Oh, and the reason it's erroring is because I declared number 1 twice. I'm gonna get rid of this one. All right, we're gonna run this now. So, cancel. Maybe I need parentheses. Okay. So the original one, I forgot with the parentheses. Make sure you include those parentheses. Let's try this again. Okay, so give us a valid integer. So if you say like Bob, right? Oh, what? Why? Oh my. Hold on. Let's do some debugging. All right, it's not working how I wanted it to. Type of number 1. Let's try that. Okay. All right. Let's try this again. Bob. Number. What? Why isn't this working? Why is that a number? Oh. Luke. Okay. All right. So I made a little error in my. I didn't even pause. Okay, so I made a little error in my code. When I say parse int, it makes it a number no matter what. So even if it's like a string, it converts it into a number. An empty number, but it's a number still. So we want to get rid of that. This is not going well. That's fine. All right, now we go over here and then, we say wait, no, then even if it is a number, oh my. Okay, you know what? Okay, alright, I'm back, and there's a better way to do all of this, and instead of that, I'm going to type is NaN, and then number 1. So, is NaN checks if it's not a valid number, right? So if it's not a valid number, then it returns true, is NaN. Let's just see if this works at all. I forgot, I gotta get rid of this line. Make sure you get rid of this line. Oh, okay, let's try this one more time. Let's say Bob. Okay, yeah. So finally, oh my. If you press enter, right, or you type in like a number without a word without a number inside, then it'll keep asking until you finally give it one. So even if you say Bob 23, it won't work. So you have to say like 45, right? Now ask for another one, right? Let's cancel this. Let's pause this. And let's do the same treatment, right, that we gave this one with number 2, right? So we're going to ask for number 2. So now we check if number 2 contains a valid number. And if it doesn't give a valid number, it keeps asking. So give us another valid. I don't even have to say integer. I could say number, right? It can take like decimals or whatever. So after all that fumbling, I finally got it. Okay, number, right? Okay. Now, right? Okay. So we got rid of those. So now we asked for something else, right? And I want another while loop, right? So while I'm gonna create a check. So let check equal false, right? Or equal true. Not true. True. Okay. So while check, right? I'm going to keep asking until it gives us a valid operation. So if, or actually instead of check, I'm just gonna write result or operation. excuse me, operation. So while operation not equals add or operation. Okay, wait, hold on. So okay, hold on. If it doesn't equal add and it doesn't equal not equal subtract, and there's a shorter way to do this, I'm sure, but I'm just going to do it the long way. Operation not equals multiply and operation not equals divide. So if it's not any of the operations, we're going to keep asking it for one. So prompt, add, subtract, multiply, or divide. And now we can get rid of this line, and then we still calculate the results, and the result can't mess up because we're not asking them for anything else. And then we can finally log the results. So so we went 8 lines down, right? We went from 24 lines to 32 lines, but now we added some extra checks, right? So that our program can't error out like crazy. Now I'm sure there's a way to break the code and make our code error out like crazy, but at least we have some sort of fail-safe. So that's basically it. That's finally the practice. I'm finally going. Okay, but thank you guys for listening, and have a good one. Keep on coding. Alright, that's the end of the stream. Thanks for stopping by. I know it got rough at some point. I stopped. I don't know what I'm doing anymore. No, I'm just kidding. I know what I'm doing. It's just I forget sometimes. So that's okay. Thanks for watching, friends, and I'll see you guys next week and the next stream. Yeah, stay on Google Classroom. I'll post updates. And again, sorry for forgetting to stream yesterday and stuff. I'll try to keep the regular schedule from now on. Yeah. So have a good one. I'll see you guys later.